What actually happened to Gummigoo in the Amazing Digital Circus episode 2? This video is not only going to cover that mystery, but also what it means for the future of the series. Not to mention how it's going to affect Pomni's psyche going forward, because we already know she is balancing on thin ice. So with that being said, if you enjoy videos just like this, grab your popcorn and a drink and let's go ahead and take a deep dive in. So for starters, Gummy Goo is the latest NPC favorite character that we came to know and love in episode 2. He's a yellow fading into green gummy crocodile that's very resemblant of a gummy worm. Obviously, he struts his brown cowboy hat and has a slim build with rounded spines going down his back. We originally run into Gummigoo when the cast pulls up on him with a mission in hand. Apparently, him and his other two goons, which some might think they're his brothers, have stolen some maple syrup from the Candy Kingdom. Now, originally, we think that they are bad guys. Obviously, the princess doesn't give us too much context as to why the syrup was stolen, just that we need to go retrieve it with the rest of the gang. Our gang includes Pomni, Jax, Kinger, Ragatha, and the not-so-fortunate Gangle. She claims that they are bandits and have taken it somewhere, and the only way to retrieve it is with a trucker similar to theirs. So, as the cast begins to suit up for their mission, the episode cuts to Gummigoo and the boys. And that's when we get a glimpse at their true intentions as to why they stole the maple syrup to begin with. Gummigoo and his other friends or brothers stole the syrup in order to save his mother and the rest of the villagers. They claim that this syrup is able to save an entire village. And with that being said, I believe that's why they will go to any lengths to protect it. Not stealing it for the selfish intentions we originally thought, but instead looking to protect others. Which actually shines a beautiful light on this cast of what we thought were goons. However, moving on throughout the episode, eventually the rest of the circus cast finds the Gummigoo gang and they get into an all-out Mad Max-like style car battle. This serves Jax to a T as he was looking for violence at all costs, showing Pomni by example and accidentally throwing her in between the two trucks. And eventually she ends up on top of Gummigoo's tanker filled with the maple syrup they came to retrieve. However, after being up there, the crocodiles begin to take interest in her and one of the boys goes up to get her. This plays right into Jax's hands as he takes out this boot launcher and shoots him off of the top of the truck. This car battle goes on back and forth for quite some time before Kinger has the bright idea of throwing an anchor past the truck that Pomni's on top of. What they don't realize at the moment, however, is that this anchor is also attached to their truck, which sends both of them into a collision course straight to the bottom of the canyon. However, somehow Pomni and the Gummigoo truck ends up spinning around and hitting the very precise angle of this rock. Now what's interesting is that the truck begins to glitch out, very similar to when you find something secret in either like FNAF or Poppy Playtime in free roam mode. After glitching for a bit, they actually go through the map, which was not intended. Now, based off of Kane's words at the beginning of the episode, we know that this entire map, adventure, and NPCs have all been put together with his brand new AI. But I would have never expected to get this close of an in-depth look. We literally can see the inside of the map. And what makes things even worse is that Gummigoo has now found his true reality, as Gummigoo has now realized that he himself is an NPC. Now this back area or this glitch in the map is very similar to a FNAF extras menu. You get a glimpse at all the models that were used in this episode, including himself. Gummigoo stumbles upon his own model that is T-posing and looking him dead in the eyes. Now, up until this point, Gummigoo has been known as the Candy Canyon Bandit, a man who has one mission: protect his village, get the syrup, and bring it back. but he begins to realize that this isn't all his life entails. He begins questioning if anything is real at all, including his own mother. But tragically worse, he also realizes that Pomni and her entire cast are not anywhere to be seen down here. And that's when he realizes his entire existence is to get defeated by any true player that comes into the Candy Canyon Kingdom. Now, unlike any ordinary NPC, Gummigoo does mention having a mother and a backstory, which makes me think, does he somewhat have a mind of his own? He's a lot different in comparison to the NPCs that we stumble across when we get into the Candy Kingdom originally, who just kind of serve as placeholders. Now, the unfortunate part about this episode is that Gummigoo goes into a state of depression as his reality finally hits him. He doesn't even care to escape this world that he's in. And that's when we get some character development as Pomni goes over to be the comforter for once. Very similar to how Ragatha took her under her wing when she herself ended up in the digital circus. And that's when she has the great idea to offer Gummigoo a spot in the circus cast, which, after a little bit of a mental struggle, he accepts and changes his whole idea of what his life's purpose is. He just asks one thing, to make sure not to tell his friends, which I found to be very noble. Pomni's character development at this point in the episode is remarkable. She literally comes in as Gummigoo's antagonist and evolves into what we now see is a well-intentioned individual who really pushes growth and redemption on Gummigoo's story arc. And I believe that Gummigoo himself is showing Pomni that this world that she's now living in is something beautiful after all. She says herself that in her world, she wasn't really important either, but this world is giving her a new purpose. And shortly after, her and Gummigoo find a way back up into the original map of the Candy Canyon Kingdom, which unknowingly to them, as the truck eventually falls down in front of the cast, crushing what was supposed to be the antagonist of episode 2 in the Fudge Monster. Obviously, Jax wasn't too happy about that, as the mission was accomplished without too much violence. They make their way back into the Candy Canyon Kingdom's gates, hand the princess the maple syrup that they acquired from the bandits, and it's a job well done. Well, other than the fact that Jax let the Fudge Monster back into the Candy Canyon Kingdom, but that's for another video. As the cast arrives back into the circus, with Ragatha being somewhat doubtful, at least looking that way, almost as if she knows that Kane isn't going to accept Gummigoo, they step back into the portal, and there they are. Gangle, Kinger, Pomni, Jax, and Ragatha, with the newest addition being Gummigoo. This looks like it's suiting up to be a heart-filled episode. And that's when Kane realizes that an NPC has escaped through the portal. And before Pomni even has a chance to speak, he snaps his fingers like Thanos and poof, disappears Gummigoo. And Kane could not be any less remorseful for what he just did. Which brings us to the big question at hand. Will we see Gummigoo once again? My theory on this is a big yes, and I'll tell you exactly why. You see, as Gummigoo was snapped away into non-existence, it didn't necessarily mean that he died. It was almost as if Kane snapped his fingers and sent him back into his NPC pile. And when I say pile, I believe that Kane, as he sets up each of these adventures, has a storage unit of different NPCs that he can combine together to tell his story from episode to episode. Not to mention, I think Gummigoo has a really relatable story, and that's what's keeping Pomni going throughout this episode. And if you ask me, I just don't think that that story is untold yet. There's also a line of merchandise that is being released as this episode is coming out at this exact moment. And in that line is Gummigoo himself. and he's becoming a crowd favorite, not to mention Gooseworks' favorite character of them all. And it wouldn't be too out there to believe that whenever Kane needed to add in his new NPC, he just takes the body. Now, I do think that Gummigoo's soul or mind might be somewhere else. However, I think he can replace it easily with the bodies that we saw when we glitched through the map. And Ragatha herself even says that he may be back in a future adventure, claiming that Kane likes to reuse his NPCs, which obviously means somewhere in the near future we might get a glimpse at Gummigoo and the rest of the gang. I guess it will all depend on if Kane finds him worthy for another adventure, as the princess from the Candy Kingdom even claims that he is their god. One thing I will say is that I really do hope that Gummigoo becomes a part of the cast very soon, as he's literally become my favorite character. I love his backstory, I loved his character development, and more importantly, I like that he gave a sense of comfort to Pomni. But let me know in the comment section down below your guys' favorite character in the series up to this point. I'd love to hear it. And if you would like me to cover any other theories from the episode, either 2 or 1, let me know as well. But guys, that wraps up this video here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you do want to see more just like this, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on those bell notifications to see everything in between. And if you're still here, check out this video from yesterday. Anyways guys, thanks again for all love and support, and peace out!